You heard a messy mix is heading our way, making the morning commute dicey in some areas. Road crews are getting ready, and in some cases, they're armed with salt to keep the roads clear. But Kevin McCallum at 7 days, that strategy in part has led to a higher salt level in our waterways, and that could be having a serious impact on the environment.
That's right, Darren. So everybody knows that salt is commonly spread on roadways throughout the state to keep ice from forming and to keep roads safe. But that salt goes somewhere. That salt washes off. It goes into rivers, creeks, and ponds and lakes in the state, and that's a problem. Chloride levels, which is the residue left over when the salt dissipates into the water, are on the rise. They're on the rise in 7 creeks and streams around the state, and they're on the rise in 2 ponds. They're called impaired waterways. And environmental activists and others say that the overwhelming source of that contamination, that pollution, is from road salt.
So the biggest contributors, from my understanding, are the smaller municipalities and plowing companies. But the state with the largest fleet of plows, 275, taking care of 3,300 miles of roads, has significantly reduced its use of salt, largely with a salt solution called brine. Explain that.
That's right. So I assumed that the state Agency of Transportation would probably be significantly to blame for the salt use on the roadways getting into waterways around the state, but apparently the state is on the leading edge of this. They are adopting solutions that really reduce the amount of salt that they use. And the key way that they do that is to pre-treat the salt that they spread on the roads. So right before the salt comes out the bottom of the snowplow and is spread onto the road, these snowplows also carry a large tank full of brine, liquid salt, and they spray that onto the salt right before it hits the road, and that allows them to use less salt overall because it keeps the salt on the road and it doesn't scatter off and go into the ditches. So they can use less salt, and that's beneficial. So you're right, it's the smaller municipalities in the state that don't have that technology that are actually the bigger part of the problem.
So is there pressure then on those municipalities to make the switch, or is it just too expensive?
It is too expensive for many of them, but there is pressure on because a lot of these waterways are in these communities, and there is pressure to try to reduce the salt use, but there's this balance, right? They don't want to reduce the amount of salt that they use so much that there becomes hazardous driving conditions. So a lot of these small municipalities are still doing the old-fashioned way, spreading rock salt all over the roads when necessary, and there is pressure on them to sort of try to shift to this system where they use brine and use less salt overall.
But again, it's expensive. And speaking of costs, salt itself is more costly this year, right?
That's right. No, one of the towns I spoke with said that, look, if you switch to this system, it is more expensive. And so there is a high upfront cost of investing in the brine system. But since the cost of salt has gone up so much, apparently like $20 in just the last couple of years, that if you use less salt, you save money in the long run, and so it's worth it overall.
Your story's out in 7 days. Kevin McCallum, thank you.
Thank you, Darren.